Greetings, welcome back to my channel. This is StasiaBliss, and we are talking Kundalini awakenings here and life force management. So, how's your life force feeling today? Today I was getting ready and I was wondering, what is the video going to be about today? It's the moon day. It's this feminine energy, this more passive receptive energy, but it can be mental. The lunar force can be mental, so mind going. So I'm opening up my mind, what should be the topic. And I've been sort of like on the cusp of this menopause sort of feeling, right? At least I'm at the age where that, is expected in the old paradigm. Even two of my sisters have crossed that bridge. And so I'm sitting on it and it's like my body can't decide. But, I've always been a proponent for like age reversal and longevity and breaking the old paradigm and like expanding the possibility of our humanness into our divine nature. And this includes the understanding of like eternal life, right? That doesn't mean you don't go through death cycles, but that's kind of what I want to talk today about. And whether you're a woman or a man, this subject, it flows to all, because this also is the way we think about our culture, right? And how our culture evolves and how humanity evolves. So Kundalini and menopause, or we could say Kundalini or menopause. I realize I can only really talk about this subject as I'm on the cusp, just like my sun in Sagittarius on the cusp of Capricorn. And I was sort of musing about this morning, like on the cusp of the sign of growing up, right? Capricorn is the sign of growing up. And I have all these other planets in my North Node in Sagittarius is like sort of like keeping me in this young, explorative, exploration mode, the wanderer, the sage, the mystic, this sort of place that does carry an essence of timelessness to it. Maybe we'll just call this Kundalini and timelessness, because there is this regeneration that begins to happen as you're really working with your life force. And some of the symptoms of awakening can really look like menopause, right? The hot and the cold, Ida and Pingala being flushed with this cosmic energy. And for men alike too, you can feel this heating and this cooling sort of energy as this is working. And then the vibrancy in your energy, and also sometimes the lethargy as your body is working to hold both of these, right? And as I've been studying Ayurveda more lately, and Vastu, which is the Indian art of placement, like feng shui, but the Indian version, all of these, and yoga too, they carry this theme of harmony and balance. That we access spirit, we access life force, we access Kundalini to the extent that we are in alignment, right? So alignment means, in the words of one of my teachers, Almin, alignment with God, alignment with our truth is luminosity, is life. Life is non-resistance to life force, or to authenticity, you could also say. If you're living authentically, you're in alignment. Authentic is truly you, right? So in alignment with oneself and one's divine nature and all the elements present within you in harmony, which also is mirrored out in your astrological chart. How did you come in here? What's your constitution? Are you living and in alignment with your constitution? Not the one that anyone else is telling you to be in alignment with. It's your particular balance of the elements. You are a very unique manifestation of the divine. And so the aging process has also to do with this coming out of balance with that authentic and moving more toward the spirit, moving more toward the ethereal, which we can often do, like going into our wisdom years, but it's also part of the programming of the previous generations and watching the generations before go through an aging, death, and dying process in the physical. So some of us are here, as I spoke about in the yesterday video, which maybe some of you had a hard time with the audio, but that's an old video of mine that I posted from 2020, where I was talking about, moving from an old reality to a new, and how do we do that, and what's our job in that. It's a great video if you can go check it out. But to summarize, it's like we have to identify the parts that are holding us back, right? The pieces holding us back, and we can talk about this in terms of shadow work, but it's the things that we don't like, or we are resisting or repelled against. We're all naturally have like a natural repulsion against like the aging process. Like if you're with me and you saw that first wrinkle, and this happened to me like last summer where I was not feeling like aging creeping in until last summer. And I remember looking at my face and going, oh my goodness, Stasia, you're like suddenly getting old. And of course, we're never like, yay, we have a wrinkle, or yay, I've got a gray hair. Like that just isn't like a thing. Maybe some people out there are like that. And it's not that I don't see like beauty and grace, like we teach ourselves to see beauty and grace in the wisdom of the aged, right? And that's also honoring our ancestors, and that's good. But there's some of us that are here with the responsibility of extending life and extending our influence on this plane, right? And seeing humanity through bigger stages. And really understanding the rebirth within the body, right? These are themes of life extension, seeing a generation longer through, seeing transformations in reality over a bigger chunk of time, holding the transition bridge. I can remember a time before we ever had any, computers, or like, we were still on the wall phone. And of course, my parents can remember a time before even TVs. And so each generation is holding, right? And now my generation is holding like a huge gap as far as what things have transpired in a lifetime. And so age extension is also being able to hold a longer timeline in one's consciousness. So bringing this back to this menopause Kundalini thing, and let's go specifically into the idea that menopause is also stopping the flow of menstrual blood and like ceasing being able to reproduce, right? So if you're only holding a certain time span, then you're like, I'm just responsible for the rise of one generation, right? And some of you might get triggered by what I'm going to say, and you might reject it, and that's totally fine. Again, whatever resonates with you, take that. But on this moon day, as woman on the cusp, I'm going to introduce this idea to some of you who haven't thought this way before, and maybe you have, but you haven't felt validated or thought you're crazy, or maybe you're right there with me. If we take this lifespan and we extend it, and we go, okay, now what if what used to be 0 to 50, 0 to 100 is now 100 to 150 or to 200? What does that lifespan look like? Because if we're going rise and fall, what if we rise and fall, rise and fall? What if we get to a place where we're in harmony? Then how long can we sustain, right? I remember reading, I think it was Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, great book. It's a channeled message about Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, and there's this record in this channel of her living, like 1,000 years or so, at least 600 or 700. It's a long time. And because she's a part of this mystery school, the Essenes, as part of the practices that I'm reading about is going into suspended animation. So she'll live like a lifespan, 80 or 90 years or so, and then go into these suspended animation tanks where they're like, going through a body preservation and renewal, and then come back renewed and refreshed and youthfied and like do another lifespan kind of thing. And that was maybe one of the first times I really saw how that could happen reading that, even though I've had the thought, yes, I believe that's possible in my life, especially when I was teaching a lot of like Almeen's immortality work, which that woman has a load of beautiful books and classes online about accessing your immortal nature. Sarah DC, Sattva Yoga. She has some higher yogas, some of which I also teach. Sarah DC, Fountain of Youth, a Lemurian Science of Immortality, I think it is. Anyway, so I've been introduced further to this stuff, but a lot of her work works with shadow work and like finding our blind spots and integrating them, but also living higher principles, like living in rapture, living in beauty, living in gratitude, living in praise. And a lot of us are aware of living in gratitude as being an ascension attitude. But I was thinking of the suspended animation thing, and I'm thinking that's really just denoting a time of emphasis on relaxation and renewal. And I had to laugh because a month ago I began a membership where I'm living at this like place called Awesome Relaxation, really awesome place, and they have like all this massage and infrared chairs, and they call the blue belt electro and negative ion bursts to your body, and lymph drainage machines, and all these like med bed kind of places. And you know, I bought a membership there, and I was thinking, okay, this year I'm going to focus on anti-aging or reverse aging, or de-stressifying my body from all that it's been through. And so I was just pondering this in the shower this morning. I was like, that is sort of like suspended animation time, because I'm giving myself pause on a regular basis now. I'm going and I'm giving myself pause, and I'm just relaxing, and I'm focusing in a meditative state on my body rejuvenating, and I'm having support in that happening. So this is my anti-aging year, guys. I'm really focusing on these practices. So on this cusp of menopause, let me bring it back around. It's possible that we could, and I've always thought, I'm not really sure it's necessary to bleed in order to be fertile. This is introduced in some other places I've read. I think even the Anastasia books, the Ringing Cedar series, she talks about this, that, you know, and this kind of correlates with the idea that the Kundalini at puberty, if not held in sync, the pituitary gland switches over and starts taking you through this imbalance. And so it's possible that that menstrual release, just like we can retain, you know, seminal fluid, not me, but in a masculine in the sexual process, if he knows how to do the breathing and the recirculation without losing that vital essence. I'm just putting this out there, not as an I know for sure, but I have teetered on the edge of this for a while, where I'll, you know, not bleed for a while, and then I'll bleed again for a while, and then I'll not bleed, and then I'll bleed a little, and like it's sort of helping me shift my paradigm a little bit to where like, oh, I'm going through menopause, but I don't really have any symptoms. Oh, now I'm having some hot and cold, but that could be Kundalini. Oh, now I'm having my cycle again, okay? And I'm sort of like balancing across it, thinking, I believe it's possible to simply be in an aligned, resonant place and chant, like bring in another soul. And my teacher, Almeen, also talks about this immaculate conception as being like in alignment with a being who wants to come in, and in conscious coupling can be the channel of that. And so we've held on really tightly, and I'm taking a long time getting to this point, I'm so sorry, but we've held on to this idea that menstrual cycles equal having babies, and menopause equals no more babies, right? Except for that fantastic example in the Bible, right? So even that like opens the door a little bit to, hey, you know, Maybe it's not exactly how we've been taught to believe. Maybe we can expand that window of possibility with our awareness and realize Kundalini is seeking to bring us into balance, seeking to bring us into harmony, seeking to bring us into an extended lifespan where we can go through like waves and cycles. You know, would you consider at a quote unquote older age, and I'm just asking those of you who are maybe, 50 or older, would you have more children later if you knew that you were just going through this youthening, aging physically, but your consciousness was expanding and getting wiser? Like I had 6 years between my kids, and it gave me like ample time to spend with each of them, right? But now as one is preparing to go off to college next year, and a good one at that, if we decide on that's the one. And if you want to know more about what I think about that, send me a message. But here my other one comes up to his, older grades, and I'm thinking, my old consciousness would say, wow, by the time he gets done and he's ready to go off, like old paradigm says I'm older, right? But I'm not feeling like how others look to me when, I'm approaching that age. So it's all about like the way we perceive reality, right? The way we perceive our vitality. Do we think we want to continue to extend our life? Would we if we felt better in ourselves? And then how can we feel better and more rejuvenated in ourselves so that life does become this inhale, exhale, And to tie it back to like Ayurveda and Vastu and yoga, a body is diseased when the elemental balance is out, right? When there's too much of an element. And it's not in harmony with your particular blueprint. And it doesn't have a balance between earth, water, fire, air, and spirit. When that's too much out of balance, then there's not flow, there's not harmony, dis-ease ensues, right? So in our being, if we are continuing to be out of balance in our day, with our routine, with our self-talk, with what we bring as important into our life, if that weighs too heavily out of balance for a long enough period of time, life force cannot sustain and it will break down. But what sustains the life force is also our understanding, our wisdom. And this is where the wisdom of the older age can help us through this transition. And I think also, I can only say so much in my 10-20 minutes, right? So I'm super cramming here. But one of the rites of passage, I believe, in life extension is like a funeral passage, is a death process. Because, okay, if we are to conquer death, as I mentioned in the Jesus video, Kundalini and Jesus, if you haven't watched it, do it. It's a good one. But the last enemy to conquer is death, said this being, according to records we have. But it's an important concept in the Kundalini, if you think of in the Kundalini awakening. If the Kundalini awakening is the Christ experience, the Christing of oneself, bringing Christ consciousness, the Buddha mind, enlightenment, which it is. Kundalini is enlightenment, enlightening, at one-ment with self and God. Then the last enemy to conquer is death. The last enemy, last polarity, right? We integrate the death piece too. Enemy is separation. Polarity, duality. Friend is oneness, unity. We become friends with death. We become friends with that element, and we notice it and honor it whenever it's taking place in our life. A death and renewal process can constantly be taking place. I've got my 6th house Scorpio. So my health, my awareness about health and routines is always in honoring the death of it and the rebirth of it. I'm a funny change it up with my routines girl. It is born, it has its process, it dies. It's born, it has this process, it dies. And so I'm understanding this different cycling, with death, and that we're always with death. And if we fear death, or we try to run away from death, or not look at death, or distance ourselves, that's when we have to maybe meet it in a bigger, more profound way, right? And that's part of the shadow work, is what are we afraid of? How can we make friends with it? Where are we already dying every day? I mean, cells alone are dying. Hair is coming out, like we evacuate. Old food, it's gone, it's dead. We have a little funeral and we flush it down. But if we can identify death in our daily life, then we don't have to act it out the same way. I'm not saying you never have to die, although if life is truly eternal, we can learn, and I'm really going to take you out there now, we can change forms. Ooh, we just got into Sun, Gemini, and I tell you, that's where my first house is. My rising sign is Gemini, so this month's going to be fun. But we are eternal, so who says that we can't just change forms if we so choose, if we're at the level of consciousness to understand the death process within the day-to-day, right? So menopause, what if it's just a pause? And we really emphasize the pause. And we ebb and flow with our life because we're giving ourselves enough nourishment, support, sleep, downtime, rejuvenation, and exercise, work, stimulation, but not just stimulation, not just work, and not just exercise. We stop beating ourselves up for rejuvenation, for the no mind time, right? Give ourselves that. Giving ourselves the whole of the nourishment, right? All of it. I just pulled a 10 of Swords reverse today, just to give you a little sneak peek into my world. And to me, that was like the end of difficulty, the end of the hard times. The hard times are past, which seems very in alignment with this message coming through today. And of course, again, take what resonates, but what if the hard times were past? And we now look at what's coming and what we're dealing with now as part of the new that's unfurling. Because truly it is. Truly it is. The new is unfurling. So, how can we be open to that energy? What can we say to ourselves now about our circumstance that isn't the old paradigm? And if it isn't menopause, then what is it that we, like, if you think your knee's going out, what else could your knee be doing? Maybe your knee is just drawing attention to it so it can get more nourishment from your vital essence of attention. If instead of your eyes are going out, what if they're adjusting to see different things in this reality? What if you're not getting old, you're just needing to rejuvenate, you're needing to draw back into yourself and revitalize, right? Just watched my dad go through this very near-death experience, and here he's coming back really strong. Like I can see his vital essence building each day, like he made a choice somewhere in that process of meeting death and deciding, I'm not done yet. And so I see this new awakening in him. And it's paralleling my own experience, interestingly enough, because my cusp of Capricorn, Capricorn's also the father, right? So do we go to the end and then ebb back? That's what the jellyfish do. I have an article on Guardian Liberty Voice about that, like immortality. Is it possible for us too, is the name of the article. And I'm talking about the jellyfish that they can't find that it ever dies because it just ages up and then it ages back and it ages forward and it ages back, and it outlives every scientist that's studying it. We actually have almost exactly the same DNA as this jellyfish. Go read the article. GuardianLV.com, search StasiaBliss or search Immortality. Is it possible for us too? And there's some Almeen references in there that are really interesting. Okay, I think that I've taken you long enough this morning, so nourish yourself this day. If you're not watching this on Monday, still know that nourishment to your vital essence is coming through this transmission to you today. I love you so much. Thank you for being here, supporting this channel. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share it, and I will see you again soon. Namaste.